I never allowed myself to care too much about freedom. I will never compromise myself for freedom's sake.
Derek Bromley's words from behind bars are comforting to his sister-in-law, Robin Malera. But on the eve of a High Court decision that could throw out Derek's murder conviction, his biggest supporter is battling unexpected emotions.
Shit, I can't even do this.
After taking a moment to collect her thoughts, Robin finds her voice.
I'm angry and I don't want it to show what a horrible, mean injustice this is.
Derek is now the longest-serving prisoner in Australia who claims to have been wrongly convicted.
He has foregone the opportunity of parole because he's stuck to his principle that this was a crime he didn't commit.
What he said to me is, he said, I'm not leaving this jail. I'm not saying I'm sorry and walking out there and walking down the street with everybody pointing at me saying, that's a murderer. He said, I'm not a murderer.
Derek's brother Russell was married to Robin. They're divorced now, but united as a family campaigning for Derek's release.
Yeah, pretty good. How are
miserable
you?
weather, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Family is one thing Derek has missed out on his whole life. His mum died soon after he was born.
And as soon as she passed away, the welfare came and took us, and we were fostered out. I felt nobody loves me, nobody cares.
Ended up on a pathway, a criminal pathway. He was in boys' homes from the age of 16 to 18.
Graham Archer is writing a book about Derek that explores his troubled childhood.
His father committed suicide from the trauma of not having his children with him. There were tragedy upon tragedy that followed.
In the 70s and early 80s, Derek was in and out of prisons for crimes ranging from stealing cars to sexual assault.
About 50 inmates overpowered 3 prison officers and took them hostage.
In 1983, Derek was identified as a ringleader during riots at the infamous Yatala prison.
That marked Derek as forever an enemy of the state. And when he left prison, he was told, you'll either be dead or you'll be back in here.
Derek got out of prison on April the 3rd, 1984. Early the next morning, 2 police constables reported seeing him on this bridge in Adelaide. 5 days later, rowers found the decomposing body of Stephen DeCosa nearby.
Anyone who has information at all, no matter how trivial, we'd like them to come forward.
And someone did come forward. Gary Carter was a patient at a mental hospital suffering from a type of schizophrenia called schizoaffective disorder. Carter believed he was a football star, a minister of religion, a black belt in kung fu, and had seen the devil. He also believed he saw Derek and another man, John Carpeney, bash Stephen DeCosa to death.
Who said that he'd seen Mr. Bromley approach Stephen DeCosa, get into a fight, bash him, kick him, drag him along the ground and drown him in the river.
Dr. Bob Moles is a leading expert on miscarriages of justice in Australia.
On the night of the incident occurring, he had both visual and audible hallucinations. He thought he was the King of Adelaide. He thought he was a top league footballer.
Still, based largely on the eyewitness testimony, a jury found Derek and his co-accused, John Carpeney, guilty. Both were jailed for life.
Gary Carter's testimony was critical because he was the only one that placed Derek at the scene of the alleged crime.
40 years on, the High Court of Australia is only now taking a serious look at Carter's evidence and whether new psychiatric knowledge about his mental illness would have changed the outcome of the trial.
I had concerns that there was a miscarriage of justice and that the reliability was not there in this witness.
Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Richard First and 4 other eminent psychiatric experts told a Supreme Court appeal that Carter's claim that he had seen a murder was, at best, unreliable.
I would describe him as being manic and psychotic, and there would now be more caution and much more concern about that kind of evidence being the critical or only major evidence in a trial of this type.
It's my view that Carter's evidence should not have been admitted at the trial at all.
Another huge shadow of doubt hanging over the case is the work of discredited chief forensic pathologist Dr. Colin Manock, who told the trial DeCosa was the victim of a drowning murder.
The experts who gave evidence on the appeal said that the autopsy in his case was so deficient they were unable to exclude the possibility of a death from natural causes.
But in what appeared to be a blow to Derek's claim of innocence, in 2004 his co-accused, John Carpeney, was freed after making admissions to the parole board. Graham Archer spoke with Carpeney after his release.
He'd done 22 years, and Derek had said to him, "John, do whatever you have to do to get yourself out of here. Don't worry about me."
If you'd said no, what would have happened?
I'd be still sitting there.
Like Derek is?
Yes.
We recently spoke with John Carpeney, who's since suffered 2 strokes. He politely declined a request for an interview, but told us, and I quote, "I always said Derek wasn't even there. I only saw him when we ended up in the jail cell." Derek has been up for parole 6 times. Each time it's been rejected.
From day one, Derek had said, "I didn't do this crime. I've done some bad things, but I didn't do this one." And it was made very clear to him, both by the parole board and correctional services, that you will stay here forever unless you accept that you are guilty.
And this is where Derek is today, a low-security prison north of Adelaide. He's a trusted volunteer with the CFS, and he's even allowed to leave to fight fires like he did on Kangaroo Island in 2020.
You get to feel like a normal member of society, and nobody out there sees you as a prisoner.
That interview was 6 long years ago, and the wheels of justice have only now arrived at the steps of the High Court, which is deciding whether Derek should be allowed to appeal.
There's a very persuasive argument for a national Criminal Cases Review Commission. I think the Folbig case was the tipping point in that.
I'm extremely humbled and extremely grateful for being pardoned and released from prison.
Kathleen Folbig was convicted of killing her 4 children, but after 20 years in jail, new scientific evidence revealed the children most likely died from natural causes.
We do know that there's over 40,000 people in prison in Australia. We do know that at least 1 or 2% of those people will be wrongly convicted. That means we're dealing with possibly 400, 800 wrongful convictions.
And the High Court will soon decide if Derek Bromley's conviction is another spectacular case of injustice.
It's certainly a picture of a man who's ready to come home and spend time with his family.
Are you hopeful that that will be sooner rather than later?
I'm hopeful it'll be very soon.
He's confident, he's realistic, he's taken all of the possibilities into account. Whatever the decision is, he is not diminished because he's still the innocent man.